the challenge is due next week. Next week on the 9th and the 11th. And what I'm seeing so far is really, really amazing stuff. So for this person, Suman Ginzi, or Gins, you have the person standing right here. I think you did amazing. I think you did just amazing. I'm going to start coloring it, but I wanted to get some input before I do. Mostly on composition. The composition is fine, only because you haven't a real chance to put a character over here. So if you put your character over here, I think you'll be able to pull off a better composition than throwing them over here. Also, your foreground is light compared to your middle ground. Your midground is really dark. So that might be problematic. I think you should have a pitch black almost foreground boulder on which the character is standing. Also, be aware that when you color this dark circle here, or anything that is dark in the foreground, you will not be able to saturate it. So don't oversaturate. When you transfer from color to grayscale, don't oversaturate the gray colors on top of the grayscale with color mode. Write that back to me if you can, like shorten it. Have a shorter version of it. But basically, when you try to throw colors on top of a black value, you will not have the color vibrant. The color will not be vibrant. So if you're trying to make the rocks like a brown, and you bring in this color, and you put it on color modes, and you try to put it on this value, it will not work. Because this value, this color, only exists on this value, and its vibrancy, and its vibrance. Whatever. If you try to get blue or purple, they do look good, because guess what? Blues and cools all still stay pretty vibrant in this dark value, and we go all the way down here and they're pretty dark. So this value right here, it can be pretty vibrant as a blue, but look at what happens to it with all other colors. So cool colors, yeah, look great. But all the other colors start to look really, really muddy, especially the warm, earthy colors. Green gets away with it with a little bit. All the cool colors get away with it. Green has a little bit of cools in it and it gets away with it. Red has a little bit of cools in it and it gets away with it. Stays somewhat vibrant in darks, but nothing is as vibrant and saturated as blues in the shadows. They stay vibrant all the way to the bitter end, right before they turn into black. So blues look great in shadows. They look wonderful. So if you are trying to darken some earthy formations or any terrestrial, terrestrial, I forget what the proper word was, but any ground, any earth, any foliage that is sandy or dark or rocky or really desaturated but has a little bit of yellow to it or a little bit of brown to it or that soil sediment color, all of those cannot be saturated with oranges. Please be aware of that. Make sure you're using enough blues in your composition. And if you do have like a pretty eerie environment that you've chosen for the Titan's graveyard, throw a nice blue wash over top, start off cool, and go into the warms. And be very, very careful that when you do try to throw color on top of these values, the color can only exist on the lighter values. I love what you've done here with the textures. Get rid of this character. He's practically non-existent in this problem, in this case, because that's problematic. The foreground is not dark right now. So what you need to do is just toss this character over here, darken him, give him a less cube-like, less Minecraft-like geometry to his body, give him something more of an organic gesture. Look up a good reference for that. You're allowed to look up a reference if you do decide to add a journeyer on here. But yeah, that's my tip for transferring your grayscales into color. Let's take a look at some more. Oh, this is very, very nice, like a watery graveyard for the Titans or that are left behind. This is a very, very nice concept. I like this kind of Spartan helmet left behind. But again, try to make sense of the environment. This seems to be like just a total mess. Like I can't really figure out what's happening. Like it's just one collective texture instead of a distinct separation between foreground, middle ground, and background. It kind of just seems like a total a swoop of texture over everything. This here looks really, really nice. It feels like this is a road, and we're kind of like the camera is on the ground, so this is a nice low horizon line, and we're seeing more of the sky. Maybe give this character here a little bit more geometry, less of that boring circular shape. We're talking Titans, great beasts. I'm sure they didn't have like a turtle head to them. But if it is a turtle, like if it is one big turtle, you can go ahead and try that as well. But try to give it more of a geometry, something a little bit more defined, more of a geometric anatomy to that, because this is where all of the attention is going. This is the focal point. Everything is pointing to this. All of the corners of the canvas are pointing to this. So make sure there's something interesting for us to see here, and that this thing in the background isn't more detailed than this thing. Alright, let's take a look at some more of these awesome environments. I love this high arc, this really, really high arc. It could be like an arm, this is the face, and it could be like an arm on the face, like holding it down. Oh, that looks so cool if this was just an arm and there was like a hand on the face, like pushing it down. And this was kind of like peering back up, and they all froze in movement. They just froze in history. This has got to be my favorite one, and there's like another really, really high peak reaching for the sun, or the suns. This is nice, again, but make sure that you're not always drawing the camel traveling from on the x-axis. Try to make them travel inward towards the distance, towards the horizon line, to have more of that depth. Okay. I already mentioned the blue that I love, but I love this blue here. If everything was desaturated except for that blue, you'd get away with it. That looks really, really cool. Careful with throwing down lines and wires. These tend to throw off the focal point. When we have lines or anything similar to a line, it acts as a focal point. So if this character and this character here are being pointed to as the focal points, or the POIs, points of interest, we can't have a bunch of cluster of lines here, because then our eyes are attracted to them. So they become very, very distracting. This here is another like a collective mess of texture instead of a defined separation or a distinct shape. So try to give them more of a familiar shape. Look up a good reference and kind of just try to make a silhouette out of that reference, and try to copy the signatures you see in that silhouette. This is another example of when we try to oversaturate the shadowed areas. The foreground should not be this saturated. Again, the foreground is dark, so the saturations cannot happen. And if this should be inverted, the background should be light, and then the background should be dark. This is all wrong. You should be inverting the shades. Right? So it looks like there's holes in the background. It looks very off. Like this is the sky, and these are like stalactites. So you should be inverting. The background should be the lightest shade. The background is the lightest shade in the environment. The sky in a daytime environment is the lightest shade. Please write that down. Even in nighttime, it's the lightest shade in a natural environment with no lights and no light pollution. These just look wonderful. I love this skull. I love how deteriorated it is. Be careful not to depend too much on the texture of the brush you're using, though. Very, very beautiful work. Oh, it would be so cool if like the character was like its mouth was kind of open from the side, like it was peeled and the waterfall is just coming right out. This is just wonderful. I love this idea that the water, like there was a root of water. All of these are looking so wonderful. I'm just so inspired. I want to make my own version of your ideas. I feel like just going through every single one of these and just stealing the idea and doing my own landscape for it. I really like the little textures you have in all of these. They seem so detailed. Beautiful work. This one is colored. Very, very nice. I like this one. Don't leave it grayscale though. Try to add some color, even if it's just a cool version of the sky color. That's fine too. The color of the sky is the color of the air. And if the color of the air is all we have filtering through and giving the foreground some color, you can go ahead and throw that blue in the foreground. Even if there are no other colors, even if it's monochromatic, it will still look passable. This is nice, like a sunlit valley of the Titan's graveyard. It doesn't have to be bleak or depressing. It can still be, just depressing in and of itself with the sun still shining on it. But over here, we're just seeing, again, this is a mess of detail that's taking up too much space. It's not anything particular. It's just a general suggestion of a texture. General suggestion of a texture, something with as little detail as this, cannot take up this much space on a canvas. Something of interest should sit right here, because this is the center point. The X of the canvas right here. And so this point here, anywhere in its vicinity, should be covered in detail. The edges of the sword right here are lining up perfectly with the edge of the mountain, which is creating a bit of a problem. It's kind of like a deliberate symmetry that you have here, which is very wrong. Try to get some of the mountain to cut right through the sword. This is wrong. I think what it's referred to is as a tangent. Right, and that's it. Again here, exactly the same example. When you're trying to throw saturation over a dark value, it doesn't work. It looks off. It looks weird. Also desaturate this. This needs to be fully desaturated, leaving the white, real rich colors of sand only where the sun hits it. Okay. Let's see some more of these. So by now you guys should be going into your final version. The thumbnail stages should be over. Some of you have never tried thumbnails before, which is really crazy. How do you guys feel now that you've tried thumbnails for the first time? The sky is the lightest shade. Excellent, excellent. I wanted to do a desert in the sunset, so lots of red and brown. I guess I'm basically screwed. No, you can do that. Just make sure that areas where the patches of sun do reach are saturated and warm, and areas where the sun does not reach are desaturated and cool. That's all it is, Serith. Don't oversaturate when coloring on top of dark values. That's the full sentence. Don't oversaturate when coloring on top of dark values. Minnie LeBlanc. Okay. So I'm just going to turn the fan down because it's really, really loud. I'm not sure if it's creating noise, but I'll be right back. Okay, so let's get started on the Paintovers. There hasn't, no one's really submitted much to these sessions these days. This one is very, very closely worked, like very, very close to a photograph. I'm not sure how much the photograph was involved in this rendering, but it's a great photo study. It looks really, really good. I think the skin feels a little bit artificial, so it would be really cool if you threw a blue filter on top of the skin. Very, very slight blue filter. What that will do is that you will unify the filter of the photograph and make everything look good, because now it seems to be like a clear-cut definition between anything that is skin and anything that is blue. There's just too much blue here for the eyes not to have eventually thrown some of that blue on the skin. So what we do is we do the eyes a favor. We combine the values together. So throwing some of that blue is a nice little trick to unify the colors, but just a little bit of blue over the skin and over the background, giving the photograph or the painting a definite wash. But let me find something else to add to today's Paintover, because I only have so many pieces to look at. So I'll be looking at this because they yelled, "Esta notice me, senpai!" So I'll take a look at that. I will notice you, baka. Okay, so let me see. So I decided to draw some faces, and here's the result. I think the color palette is looking pretty great. Let me know what you think. I would love to see the reference for this. Cool shadows, that's good. Okay, because the room is so dark, I think the shadows should be even darker. Unless there's some sort of something to say that some of the light is also in the room. Because the room is so dark, and you're probably saying that's just the background, that's not the room. Of course it's the room, because it's a three-parter. The light environment involves the shade of the background. I just couldn't use fresh eyes on this before I go any further. This is posted a while ago, but I could still take a look at it. Okay, so I can take a look at this today as well. Alright. So let's get started. No. Okay. So I'm going to get started with this one. And no, that's not it. This one right here. And what this person is drawing is basically someone looking up. And the problem with this is that there are a couple of inconsistencies here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and use Portrait Studio to help me figure this out. So I'm going to just replace the camera and kind of just try to set up that exact situation with the camera. So nearly there. Okay. So their head is tilted just a little bit more than mine. So you can use the camera or you can use the menu right-click rotation, that's either or. But when we do this exact thing, so I'm just referencing how much of the forehead is visible and how much of the chin is visible. We notice that in your version, so let me just screenshot this real quick. In your version, there seems to be a really small size to the head. So this person isn't just, we can also make her head look up. So we can just, oh, never mind, we'll just restart it. So we can do a rotation in the head. So that way we can have, because I moved the whole camera, but for yours it's just the head that was looking up. Okay. So she was looking up all the way. And then the camera was just a little bit, let me see ours. Camera was just so the shoulders are almost level with the camera, so let me try to just duplicate that exactly. Okay. So even then, even if we do it in this version, so we've got both versions here, we can see that in yours the head was just a little bit small, so let me screenshot that. So grab both of these. We can see that the head is a little bit small because the head is taking up a lot of space in this, the face is taking up a lot of space in the head. So right here on the area where the head turns into a cube, right here in the temple where the head descends into the sides of the face where the ear is tucked in, we can see the eye extends all the way to that side, all the way to that end. And yours starts a little bit late. So you drew the face on the basic cross of the symmetry, but you didn't draw it according to the side of the head, or the size of the head. So the entire face area is small, because if we were to draw the cube, just according to where everything sits, using this as a reference, you can see that yours is just a little bit delayed. There's much more space in yours before we see the eyebrow than in this one. The eyebrows are all the way on the sides of the head, while yours are just a little bit shrunken and pinched toward this this kind of like pressure point, I guess. We also don't see that much of the chin if the ear is this low, so we don't really see that much of the chin at all. The chin ends somewhere there. The other side of the chin tucks in, the part that we don't see, and this is accredited to rotation. How much of the face can you paint while still considering the bits that you don't see? So that's a really complicated thing to think about, even something to describe. But essentially what it means is, can you paint the cube and also think about the sides of it that we're not seeing? So I feel like the face should be way larger. And not just that, we need to think about the symmetry lines that sit on everything. The line between this corner of the lip and this corner of the lip, this nostril and this nostril, this inner eye and this outer eye are all parallel. But these don't really seem to be parallel. The eyes are not parallel. So I'm going to try to get them to be a little more parallel. It's just going to be really, really tricky. Like really tricky. So it's going to take a while. Because I'm going to be using liquefy as well as transform. I wish there was an easier way. So the first and foremost, the first correction we did was making the head the same size, like fit the face. So we increased the size of the face. And really that's the first thing to go. The size of the face is the first thing to go when we try crazy perspectives. We really have no gauge for how to measure the sizes of everything. And then there is the lip. So I'm gonna just in this level try to create that symmetry between all of the corners. Just because we're in a perspective doesn't mean we lose horizontal symmetry. Write that back to me. That means that only if we're in if we're in some crazy foreshortening, or if we have some crazy perspective happening. Like I really like how you hid the eye. That's like really sophisticated rotation and stacking right there. But still the head size was a little bit small. We would see a lot of the space. So let's take a look at these references. We'd see a lot of space before we see the eyebrow. There's a lot of, we're seeing the entire under eye. So there's a lot of that space visible to us before we see the eyebrow. So the eyebrow you drew was just way too close. And it should rotate all around to the temple. Alright, so just because we're in a state of perspective does not mean we lose the horizontal symmetry. It's still there. Okay, so before, after. You kind of threw in an expression just by losing that symmetry and losing that stacking. Okay, so the chin, again, feels a little bit low considering how you painted the face. So when we go back into yours, when we look into the reference here, we see that there's a lot of space for the chin that we can still see. We don't see it in its full frontal space, in its full frontal width, but we don't see that much of the lower part of the chin. We still see enough. Okay, so merge down, grab that eraser. Just like that. Might have to shrink the face just a little bit more, or maybe use the liquify on the chin. Actually, I think I'll do that. Okay. So over here, you're kind of pushing the chin so that we can see the further corner. It's like that example with the car that I give you. If you draw a car in 3/4 view, would we see the other wheel on the other side? No, but for some students, they would lift that other wheel just so we can see it. So it's like you're lifting the other part of the chin just so we can see it. And really the best thing for you to do is try to get the face in perfect perspective before you render it. So get rid of all of this, just the head just try to get the head in perfect perspective before you throw anything else on top of it. So you can throw a shadow here and a shadow here just so that you can get a gauge for where everything sits and try to get some symmetry going, horizontal and vertical. But, when we do this, look, take a look, the cheeks weren't aligned, so we can align the cheeks on this point. So make sure that the cheeks are also on a horizontal line that stretches across the face. We're following that cube. Geometry is your best friend when it comes to perspective. Geometry is what is tested when we try heads in different perspective. It's like that example I showed you. The guy, he was basically saying, learning how to do 3-point, 2-point perspective, 1-point perspective will make you draw heads better. How does that even happen? How does that even work? What does perspective have to do with faces? It has everything to do with faces because perspectives and perspective landscapes help you set up cubes on a landscape, buildings and roads on a landscape. Why? Because cubes are a geometry. The head, if you start thinking of it as a geometry, which it is even in its natural state, it's geometric. It's got cube-like shape to it. If you perfect that, so see before, after, now we have aligned cheekbones. The cheekbones are horizontal, and everything is on the same horizontal line. Everything follows the same horizontal line. And we throw the face back on, try to get that horizontal line happening again, trying to get everything aligned. Maybe the head needs to be, or the face needs to be shrunken just a little bit more. We find that it's starting to fit just a little bit. So the head is a geometry, and it's like a building with little buildings attached to it. And if you start thinking of the face of the human as architectural, as something geometric, as a building. Remember, I've made you guys write that back to me before. Think of the face as a building. You'll be able to paint it in all kinds of perspective. Sound is working, right? Yeah, it is. So the corner of this distant lip, you've kind of painted this lip in a full 3/4 view almost. But the face isn't in a full 3/4 view because we're seeing the other eye, so we're seeing the other cheek. And the teeth should be a little bit more outward this way. You see the lower part of the chin. And we see some highlight for the upper part of the chin, just like that. So think of the face as a geometry. Think of the face as a building. There is definite geometry, definite perspective happening on the cube-like structure of the face. And when I say cube, I just literally mean this. This cube right here. And there are other smaller cubes on it, and these smaller cubes sit on a horizontal line. So when we get a cube, let's say we got a cube and we put tape all around it, and we tilted this cube on a perspective, the tape would still be perfectly horizontal. It would be a different step. There'd be compression on one side and more on the other side, yeah, but it would still be a perfectly horizontal cube. There's nothing, none of that goes out the window. And when you guys try to eyeball, you know, you have very little experience with different perspectives for the heads, and you try to eyeball it, this is what happens. We get a disproportionate face. The symmetry goes out the window. The likeness goes out the window, especially if you're painting a comic book and you're trying to get it so that the character looked up, but all of a sudden she's like a different character, you know? Like this was a character that was looking up at the sky in one panel and then looking at the main character in another panel, and it's like you just changed actors midway. If you don't know how to draw perspective, you'll be changing your character's likeness. So likeness is one of the dangers, that you might lose that. Alright, so likeness, along with the size of the face, those are two things that suffer when you don't have enough practice on facial symmetry, or facial symmetry in perspective. So I'm just gonna, the lighting here is coming from the side for her, it's not the same as this one. Let's try to get it to be the same. Actually, I didn't save, so never mind. So I know the top of the, actually, I'll just demonstrate it. My bad. Alright, so I'll make her tilt her head again. Female, tilt her head this way. And then tilt her neck all the way back. She's looking up at the sky. And then let's try to get the light source to be exactly as it is in the reference, from above, at an angle, and then just lots of ambience. And her skin value should be a lot darker than that. The brightness of the light a little more dim. So this is exactly what you should be doing. The sides, oh no, this is at an angle, my bad. It should be a little bit more symmetrical. So the sides, exactly like this. The sides of the nose are lighter than the shadow under the eye socket. So let's save that. Whoops. Let's save that. The sides of the nose are lighter because they look up at the light. Just like that. They're never darker than the socket of the eye, because the socket of the eye is a deeper depression. Do you see that? So they're always just a little bit lighter than the socket here. Well, because she's reflective. She's got a lot of reflectivity and shininess to her. So if you bring that down and make it very close to skin, she's not as reflective anymore, and that area stays very shadowed. And her face is very, very general, very universal. So we need, oh, whoopsie, wrong layer. So we need just a little bit more work. I think we would see less of the side of the nose. So what you're showing us is more of the side of the nose. We would see more of the bottom of the nose. So let me see if I can even do this successfully. I don't think I'll be able to. Oh no. We'd see the nose tucked in, like we'd see more of the bottom of the nose. And again, that all leads back towards the geometry. Think of the nose as a pyramid. in this perspective. We'd see the side of the pyramid instead of seeing the pyramid only from like the bottom side of the pyramid, not just the side of the pyramid. And then we'll just shrink it to where you had it before. Whoops. So before, after. I just feel this nose would according to what's being told to us in the reference, we would see more of the side of it. Just keep that. So merge down, merge down, merge down. Illuminate the entire frontal area. Make sure the side of the nose isn't the same darkness as the eye socket. Make sure the top of the nose is nicely illuminated. So the top of the nose, see that geometry right here, that top of the nose? And if you're still having trouble with this, go to like a low poly and do the exact perspective on it. Whoops. Exact perspective, exact same kind of light source. Just like though, this is a little bit less. But the top of the nose, see that top part of the cube that we're looking at? That entire top side is illuminated. So we grab that highlighter. Let me just toss that right on the top. And that makes the nose feel so much more three-dimensional. And remembering the symmetry, and remembering the likeness in the measurements and the differences and the spaces between every feature will all lead you to capturing the same likeness between the characters in perspective. So it will look like the same character but looking in different directions. But when we paint, our characters look like, completely different people when we try to change their angles. And this is all because we don't measure, we don't think about geometries. Thinking about this stuff will make you improve faster. Thinking about geometries is a really quick way to make it so that you can render anything. Geometry is an all-encompassing physics. I'm not sure how to put it best. I mean, the geometry in the face is similar to the geometry in anything else. So learning how to shade a cube in a certain kind of light source means that you'll be able to paint anything that is cube-based. So if anyone can find a better way to say that, please help me. Geometry is it's not general, because if I say it's generalized, then I might minimize its strength. But essentially, learning how to shade all geometries, learning how to shade polygons and forms, you'll be able to see everything as a building, and turn all those principles, make them all applicable to anything you're ever going to draw. So the lower eyelid, though it is visible, whoops, wrong one. The lower eyelid, though it is visible, is still a little bit dark and a little bit low. But not as low as you made it. For yours, it felt just a little bit too low. We would see more of the lower eyelid than the top eyelid, so you got that really well. But yeah. Yeah, low polys. We don't really call them Asaro heads, just a low poly head. So, my desktop is so messy right now. Before, after. So you see what happened to the form? It was all skewed. It was all warped, rotated, because what you were doing is drawing a face two-dimensionally in a three-dimensional situation, which is perspective. You can't have perspective without 3 dimensions. Everyone write that back to me. It's X, Y, and Z. It's not X, Y, and X, Y, and X, Y only. It's X, Y, and Z. There's a depression. There's a movement inward into the painting. Always pretend that your canvas isn't just a flat canvas, but it's a room. All right, your canvas is a room. So there is an inward movement. That inward movement, that exact arrow I'm drawing right now, that inward movement, that's the z-axis on any chart. I forget what this chart is actually called. This whole chart is called something. I forget what it's called. Yeah, the z-axis is an inward movement. So before, after. And this is just all guided by thinking about how these objects stack, thinking about them in their lowest poly, and just following that way. I think I lost the old lightness. I mean the light situation. I think it's on an angle now because of the sorrow head. Oh, I think it's perfectly symmetrical right now. I think, yeah. Yep. So the sides of the nose are not as dark. That's really the most important. This is with high ambience. If we bring that all the way down, you'll really see that the sides of the nose do not get as dark as this. Alright, so they don't get that dark as you drew them here. You can't have perspective without 3 dimensions, exactly. You can't have 2D in a 3D space, exactly. Alright, ever since school you have... Oh, geometry, ever since school you have in the most... Alright. Currently you move around the model to get a different view, but the light source doesn't move, so the shadows change. Could the lighting be locked in a relative position or something like that? That already is available, Rusty Bullet. I suggested that months ago already. And a lot of stuff will be available to you. Stuff that you didn't know you needed in order to execute Purchase Studio successfully. It will be in the new update. And those who already own Purchase Studio, you don't have to. Sorry, that low contrast is just hurting my eyeballs. Those who already own it don't have to worry about purchasing the updates. It comes with the initial purchase, so don't worry about that. A lot of people have been asking me, do I get the changes, the overhaul? Yes, you do. If you already own Purchase Studio, it'll automatically update when it's ready. Yeah, my version is an older version because I'm running a really high poly model that is specific just for my computer because I'm special. Not really because I want you guys to have the best, the really high quality model. My computer can run it. But if we give you guys this, it might crash your computer. So we give you an acceptable resolution. Yeah. I thought the original looked so good, but when compared to the altered version, you really see the difference. Got a long way to go. Yeah, just because something looks right to you right now does not mean that it's right in general. So your eyes can deceive you according to what looks right. This is why it's so important to always get critiques whenever you can. Your current skill level will be reflected in whether or not you're seeing mistakes. So if you ask, why don't I see mistakes as much as you do, or how can I learn to see mistakes? That comes with improvement. When you improve, you see more mistakes. So we did a lot of perspective changes in this painting, like a lot of stuff. Completely reorganized the face. There are some other minor issues here, but along with some edge work and some reorganization for the skin tones and the ear, I think I can just do this with Liquify. I think this face would just be finished. Tuck that in, give the volume to the top of the head. Okay. Reset that ear. Any questions at all? That is because Ista is a magician. Public version is optimized, but we'll be adding graphic settings. Yes. You're gonna fix the ear? Yes, I was just doing that. I have to raise the density all the way up to move it as one object. So basically to fix the ear, more of this eye should be hidden, by the way, but it would be like bloop, bloop, because of that cube. Remember that cube I drew over everything? Just tucking that in. See, I can't fix the ear without messing up the skull. Gosh dang it. Go down. I would have to just crop out the ear, but the ear is a given. And this jawline should be right on the edge of the face. forehead, we'd see the bulbousness of the forehead. Yeah, so the head was just a little bit low, and it moved up with the ear. I mean, the head was a little bit high, but the ear was low. So the head was fine the way it looked. I think I just shrunk it all together. But before, after. The lower jaw would be the bigger object, really, because we'd be seeing more of the lower jaw. And all the other shadows still apply because it's the exact same as the Rembrandt lighting. It's just the time she's looking up. Even this shadow here would be a little bit lighter because now it's looking directly up at the light. And the sides of the nose would totally be illuminated compared to the eye sockets. And the eyebrow very, very distant from the eyes, but before you had the eyebrows too close. So you were painting the eye as if you were looking at it front view, but you put it into a perspective. I just remembered that I forgot to send my student the brush sprays homework. Give me a moment. Oh my gosh. Damn, where did I put that? Oh, right, I know where I put it. Sorry, Ryan. Probably gonna watch this and be like, what the hell's wrong with my teacher? There you go. Alright. On the internet, I saw a photo of this. Saw a photo says that the eyebrows should be in line with the top of the ear. Is that true? Just realized I could look at myself. Typically, I think that. Whoa. She looks like she's about to kill me. There we go. It should be a little bit higher. The eye, the top of the eye is typically where it aligns with the face. But if we look at it from the side, it looks like that they align just fine. You know, the eyebrow is aligned with the eyebrows. So perspective really screws with your mind. It just depends on how we look at the face, really. You see, it looks like it's above the eyebrows because this is closer to us and this is further away. When something's further away, it moves down or up along the horizon depending on our perspective. But from the side, it looks like it's on the same line. It really doesn't matter. As long as it's in the same vicinity, it really doesn't matter. Those kinds of specific things, no one is looking out for them. If the ear is too high all the way up here, then you know it's problematic. Just as long as it's on or under this line of the eyes and between the nose and the eye line, just as long as it's there. People have all kinds of shapes and sizes for their head, so there is no one set version. Okay? The head still feels a little small to me, just the whole cranium. That ear kind of pushed it up. But I hope you guys learned something today. But that program, it's called Portrait Studio. A lot of people see it and they don't know that we're the ones who created it. It's Portrait Studio. Alright, so let's see what everyone's saying. Perspective really screws with your mind. Yes, it does. Okay. This is my first time watching Senpai live. Welcome, Freakinauty. Alright, so I'm just trying to see if there's any questions. It's not a questions, but you were saying you would like to see the reference I used for my image, and I just want to say I didn't use one. So Red Vaporean is the one who just painted this one. Yeah, it looked like that you didn't use a reference, and because you were painting the eye from front view, if you had seen the reference, you would know that the eyebrow is a little bit far away from the face. Sorry, that beeping is my dryer. The horizontal line of the cube bent because of the roundness of the face. The horizontal line of the cube bent. No. See, some people think that the faces, when they bend, whoops, like when they're in a perspective. Let me reload that image. Close all this stuff. It's completely in the way. Where is it? Some people think it's like this, which is very, very problematic. The reason why this is problematic is what's this referring to? What's this referring to? And what's this referring to? This is hitting the top of the nose, but this is representing the base of the eyes, which are on a different level. So when we're using curves, the curves can be right if you know what they're referring to. But when we're talking about the eyes in their symmetry without the nose involved, at different altitudes, the eyes are on a lower line, than the nose, then we're talking straight lines. The eyes sit on a horizontal symmetry that is on a straight line, which is the cube's straight lines. All right, then we've got the second cube, which is the nose, on the first cube. Sorry, that's a really messed up. Damn it, I have to fix that. All right, so we've got the second cube, which is on a different recess. It's a completely different line than the other eyes. So we can't use a curve. It just doesn't work. It has to be a straight line. The base of the nose is very different from the tip of the nose, but we're using a curve to summarize both. What's that going to do for us? It's not going to do anything for us. This is on an altitude higher than the rest of the face. The nose is a really, really tricky little piece of shit. It's out to fuck you up. It's out to give you it's out to sabotage your work. Beware of the nose. It's evil. And just always remember to represent it as a building. The face is a building. The face is an architectural landscape. The face is a geometric landscape. Write that back to me. The face is a geometric landscape. Oh, not this one. Oh, sorry, Red Viperian. I'm sorry. I don't know what you're referring to. I don't know what the names are. Everyone has their own like anonymous name, and they've got another alias, and then they've got another name for the file. So it's really hard for me to just know who painted what. All right. Wow, these horizontal lines, when head is tilted, it just changed my world. I used to always use curves. Yeah, the curves are dangerous. The curves, they mean nothing. They represent nothing. There's still mistakes, lots of mistakes in my Paintover, but it's a very big step away from where we were before. All right, so I'm going to save that and let that go. Let's talk about this here. Three-quarter view, anything in perspective, just jump straight into Portrait Studio, guys. It'll really help you. So let's take a look at the lighting. This isn't so much perspective, but it is in three-quarter view, which means that it might have confused you just a little bit. Look at the sides of the nose. Really neighboring values. Very, very dangerous to do that. What we want to do is give the nose some volume. And when we give the nose the volume, we can only really see how important this is when we use the low poly heads. I just love Portrait Studio. It's helping me so much. So let's try to copy this reference. Both the cheeks have the same amount of light on them, so that means it's top down and perfectly symmetrical top down. Alright, let's raise the ambience. Alright, and just throw that on the side. So this has very, very light values compared to the rest of the face. Actually, I need to move this back this way because I don't have the one where you have symmetrical everything. Alright, there we go. So that means that the sides of the face can never ever ever have that darkness as equivalent to this shadow right here, these shadows. It can never be the same. In fact, in your rendition, because your rendition is so dark, you have to make sure that, because this is a lot of ambience turned on, so this is as dark as yours, really. And the room is even darker as well. So this ambience right here is just diffusing everything, it's doing nothing else. It's not destroying any values or destroying any cast shadows, but take a look at what you missed. You missed the shadow of the cheekbone, and you missed the fact that the side of the nose isn't as dark as you made it, which is super dark. Also, yours is not just three-quarter view, it's a tilted three-quarter view, so it's in perspective. We're seeing some of the neck or just a little bit like that. So the head is lifted just a little bit. The chin is pretty high. We're seeing the base of the neck, the lower part of the neck where the Adam's apple is. So we need to see more of this, and again, this is all it all has to do with the geometry of the face, that cube of the face, what it does when it's in perspective. So these, I'm not sure what these are. I think these are like this line right here. Why is it all the way around? Is it like a looped eyebrow? You know, like a wrapped, or is it above? I'm not sure. Is it like a World of Warcraft eyebrow? I'm not sure. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so you missed those two major core shadows. Another massive thing you missed, as indicated by this geometry in this light source. This is real light sources on a real three-dimensional object. And I'm not destroying the image. I'm not changing your character. All I'm doing is adding a scientific familiarity to, I guess you can say that, which is something that makes the character feel like they really are living in their own world that has its own light source and its own physics, very similar to ours, which makes it that much more believable. We only have our world and its physics. We don't really have another version of that. So I'm going to throw that exactly as just a block. I'm just going to block. This is called blocking, and I'm going to block that in exactly. I'm also going to block in the side of the nose, which has a degree darker than the highlight. So it's not going to be that dark, but it's going to be one consistent shade. Just like that on the side of the nose. It's not going to be that dark though. I'm going to lighten it up just to show you for the sake of the demonstration. This is the cutoff point. Doing exactly as the low poly head is showing us. And then anything under that is illuminated all the way through. Straight to the side of the nose, all the way. And then flatten that out. Make sure that there's nothing on the side. How can the side of the face here, this is an Asaro head, so it's low poly, but full poly, how can the side of the face all the way under the eye, like over here, just like you have it, be illuminated? That's impossible. This needs to be shut off, just completely disconnected. This is the dark side of the cube. Okay, so all of this is in shadow. We've cut that off. There's some hair in the way. Typically, what we're trying to do is make it so that this line down, we get the shadows. So this cheek would typically go into a highlight, but because there is some hair blanketing the sides, I guess you're excused by not having it that dark or that highlighted. But it still needs to be somewhat highlighted, just until we reach the edges. So not as dark as you did it. Oops. Alright, the next thing would be the placement. Let me see if I can find the reference we made earlier. The placement of the lower eyelid. So this is a low res. This one's also low res. But look at what happens to the lower eyelid. We see a lot of the lower eyelid, right? I didn't zoom in, so I didn't get a good screenshot. Let me try to do it again. Female, and just raise the head all the way. And just zoom in. Okay, set up the light source so it's the same. Just raise that ambience. Look at the lower eyelid. It's really visible, isn't it? It kind of just, we see a lot of the lower eyelid because of that slight tilt forward. So forget the shoulders. This is exactly kind of what you've drawn for us, without the extended shadow, of course. But right here, we see a lot of the lower eyelid, and the lower eyelid for yours is just a little bit high. So what I'm going to do is lift that up. So I'm just going to lasso out that whole lower eyelid and just copy paste it. Whoops. So the eye was fine, it's just the lower eyelid itself was just a little bit delayed. It's like one of her eyelids was open all the way and the other was just so now it's on a horizontal line, a straight horizontal line. Just like that. So the eyes are behaving symmetrically. So before, one of them was fully open and one of them was closed, and now they're both kind of at the same level. Remember, I'm so limited with my corrections, I won't be able to fully change everything. And after that, what we do is we just blend these areas together. Make sure you never fall into the evil temptation to outline the sides of the nose. Really, really dangerous. You know, it's just not, it's never a good idea. So this shade, if you're confused, okay, fine, I'm gonna throw a highlight at the top. I'm going to go ahead and make this all geometric and blend only where I have to. But what do I do between this shade and this shade? It's simple. Just don't blend them together. Carry them all the way to be right beside each other, but don't blend them. just like that. Sorry, I'm not looking at the questions. I will in a moment. Just finishing this up. So I'm just gonna blend that. Okay. And again, just continuing that. You have this really, really dangerous icky line that I hate. I hate that line. You don't need it. Just have faith that the edges can just sit beside each other in harmony. There doesn't need to be a wall between us and Mexico, alright? We don't need to depend on our lines and our walls. Do you see? Anyone who uses lines, I bet you're voting for Trump. I'm sorry, I'm demonizing everyone who uses Trump. I use lines when I sketch, but never use lines when you're trying to render a full illustration that needs some edge work. Alright? So, there's a couple more leftovers of that poly that I made. Okay. And then what I said earlier was I'm going to just lighten everything. Did I disconnect? No. No. And I'm going to grab some of this highlight right here and just toss it only on the highest point of the nose, just like that. The whole nostril here, we would see a lot of the nostril. We would see just the whole area of the nostril, but what's happened is you've shortened the nostril as if we're looking at it front view. Stop painting, stop mixing front view perspective with any other perspective. Stop painting front view perspective on anything, alright? Write that back to me. You can't mix perspectives together. You won't get away with it. So this nostril, we need to see the full cavity because, you know, when you're, let's say you're sleeping on someone's lap. I don't know why I'm using that example, but you will see the entire, you know, cavity of their nose. You're going to see all their boogers and all their hair. All right, so you see that because you're looking down, you're looking up at them. But all the girls are like, ew, Istebrak, don't talk about boogers. It's not ladylike. Okay, so we just need a little bit of that highlight here. I'm gonna get my soft brush, hurry it along, it's already 6 o'clock. Okay, and that'll be that. I'll show you the before and after, and congratulate this 14-day challenger right here that finished. But just one last little thing. Oops. Just to make sure the tip is nice and in perspective. The nose is tucked in. We're seeing the other nostril as well. Straight line, straight line. Yes, stop mixing perspectives. You will not get away with it. Alright. For this one, I'm so sorry, I'm still not done. The distance between the eyebrow. You want us to see your boogers? I will be honored. Okay, so this space right here needs to be higher. There needs to be a higher placement. And then you can just, you know, do that little stylish bend downward for the shape of her brows. But because she's in a perspective where we're looking up at her and she's looking down at us, we see more of her eyebrows. So it did make her eyebrows feel bigger. So let me just compensate for that. What I don't want to do is make the eyes any bigger than they are. They were just fine the way they were. Oopsie. Okay, so good job hiding this eye. I still think we need to hide a little bit more of it, but it's really not that big a problem. I'm sorry, I'm losing my voice. I bet that's what I'm going to sound like when I'm old. Ew. So before, flattened nose, perspective is a little off with the eyes. The eyelid really isn't part of that same gesture in the other eye, so it's asymmetrical. We need to see more of that lower eyelid. We push the rest of the face back up towards to meet the light. It's more part of a light environment. And if you want to add a cast shadow off the hair, all you have to do is just get a new layer and just cast that shape of these bangs right here. Just cast their shape on. Because this whole like Sephiroth kind of hairstyle, yes, Sephiroth, yes, casts a shadow. It's like right in front of the head. Me and my sister growing up, Sephiroth was like our biggest crush, like second to Vegeta. He was life. Sephiroth was so hot. Every time we see him in like Kingdom Hearts like game or something, we would squeal. We were like little girls, like what did we understand about, what's hot and what's not, but I don't know, it just is. Sephiroth was the coolest shit ever. Okay, so that's the cast shadow. And then before, after. Alright, and if you feel like you lost some detail, you want to give her a different kind of nose, it doesn't matter what kind of nose you paint, as long as it's showing that the top of the nose is catching some of that light. I still feel like her nose should just be bigger all around because we're looking at the base of it. Her nose feels really, really small. And I did use a soft brush, so excuse the extra softness, but this way it really feels like she's part of a light source. As for the light source behind her, I don't think you're going to get away with that. You have to make it like really bright so we can understand why she's in a silhouette. And she herself would have to be super dark. So darken just a little bit more. And that's the silhouette state. Now that's the state of the silhouette. That's what happens when you're in a silhouette. But you kind of didn't want to deal with that. So what you did was you found a middle ground. But really what it's supposed to look like is this. Alright, this is what it's like to have a silhouette. And that's fine. You can still do that because what happens is you can just cheat. You can just cheat just a little. Throw some extra little highlights just like that. And throw those little sparkly bits. You can make her eyes super, like they're like a light source like by themselves. You can make that kind of stuff happen while still being in the silhouette. So instead of having this washed out, cheaty kind of half in, half out the silhouette light environment, instead go full into the light environment and give us some of those light signatures that show that she's a little bit bioluminescent, a little bit magical, a night elf if that's what she is. Really just I feel like this is inspired by World of Warcraft a lot. But yeah, these are your options. This is what I would do. I would darken her. Don't be scared. Don't be scared to throw the whole character in darkness if they have to be in a silhouette. Write that back to me. Ista advocates cheating. Yes, Vegeta then Sephiroth. The fangirls know. Would there be a highlight on that eyebrow over the right eye? No, because it's under a shadow. I think this eyebrow highlight should be a little closer and under the eye because it's part of that. I think her whole like temple area is a bit too wide, but I can't go through every single thing. No, but it's under a light, the shadow. I mean, why is there a highlight on the side of the nose? You mean this one? You can excuse it. It's oily. The nose is an oily thing, so it might look better that way. And I'm going to delete this, and I'm just going to merge that down. Let me see if I can just sharpen because of that chaos that soft brush leaves behind. Okay. And if you want these pieces sent back to you, you just have to message me on Facebook and I'll send it back to you. So this is a 14-day challenge graduate. I think their name is Adaisy. And this is day 1 and this is day 14. The realism is just there now. The symmetry is beautiful. The gaze feels very organic. You still have a long way to go with just defining edge work. I think the edge work here is a little bit off. Also, it's a suggestion of a nose, not the rendering of a nose. The sides of the nose should be a little sharper and darker. I also think you should determine which gender you're going for. It's not excusable in portfolios for the industry or for freelancing or anything for that matter, even for your own work if you're doing private work, private projects. It's not good to learn an androgynous face permanently and have all your characters look androgynous. I do not recommend it, despite what the recent movements are in the world and how they're trying to basically not let anybody procreate anymore. I don't know. But please, for the love of God, learn how to draw a female and learn how to draw a male. And if you must, for a character, for the narrative, for your own taste, will feel like drawing an androgynous character that is neither male nor female, that is gender fluid, go ahead and paint that. But as a powerful artist, do not be crippled by a specific taste. Be available. Allow your skill set to be wide enough to draw both genders as they are in the real world. There are two genders biologically. All right, just don't forget that we were all born of two genders. All right, so there's that. I can't tell if it's a female or male because of the width of the mouth, but the beauty of the eyes suggests a female. The navigator suggests a female, but looking in, I kind of just get a male sense off of this, mostly because the eyebrows are thick, and there isn't a defined arc. Really more like a very large basic shape for the eyebrows, which can feel a little bit masculine. But altogether, I think the before also looked masculine. But beautiful, beautiful job. Keep going. Don't let the background be patchy. Just let it be one color. That way it'll remind you that a light environment is an atmosphere. Unless you deliberately wanted some fog. But I'm just strict like that. No. Alright, so let's see if there are any questions before I get going. Oh my god, did you just assume this drawing's gender? Yeah, congrats. Daisy was. If you were trying to draw a girl, I do recommend looking up some references for female eyebrows. Even for that ethnicity that you were going for, they do tend to be very pronounced eyebrow arcs. And it'll give you a better read. Basically, you want a good read. You want an immediate read if you're doing a private project or concept art. You want the character not to think too hard before they know which gender it is or which job they are, which role they play. Unless you're deliberately trying to make them not know whether or not they're female or male. You're misgendering her. You hear in the far distance, echoing along. So eyebrows define the difference between a girl and a guy, and eyelashes. Not just the eyebrows, Holloway. Everything else, there's so much more to it than just the eyebrows. But the eyebrows are one makeup prop that even transvestites, those who dress as women, do with their makeup. They redraw their eyebrows to have a really defined arc. Yeah, really big improvement for just 14 attempts. Really, really good job. Waiting for someone to get triggered over the fact that Ista said that there's two genders. Oh man. There are two genders biologically. Socially, there seems to be, I don't know, you can associate it with a cup of old tea. I associate it with a cup of old tea. That's my gender personification. I relate, what's the term? How do they say it? I associate with a half full cup of old tea. Is to pour your knowledge into a cup so your 120 something disciples may assume your knowledge. Honestly, if it was that easy, I'd have done it. So if you guys are curious about everything that I do, if there are any newcomers here, if there are those who have been watching recordings but haven't watched full streams, just go to istebrak.com. If you want a copy of Portrait Studio, just go to the store. Massive updates are coming up, just full changes of all kinds of parts of the studio, from UI to models, full body models, hand models. Really, it'll be everything that you need to finish a painting, other than props, of course. I mean, there's not tables and chairs in there, but everything to do with the model aspect, the female human model or male human model aspect of finishing an illustration or a character design or a portrait. So the links are here. You can buy it with all kinds of payment methods, so it's available for everyone. Brushes are also available for those who ask me. God, I'm losing my voice. And my books, of course. Then there is the community. Currently there is for those who don't know, there is a theme running. It's an environment theme. If you want to start, you might be hitting it just a little bit late, but there is still some time for you to start it. The due dates are the 9th and the 11th. I might push it to the 16th. I'm not entirely sure. But the 9th and 11th, I'll look at environments. I'll talk about the basics of drawing an environment, how to render an environment. Maybe we'll work on one together fully. Maybe I'll render one of yours. I'll choose one of the ones you guys submit and render it further and talk about it. And I'll try to push the class to be 2 hours on one of those days or both those days so we can cover everyone who participated. And this is the resource pack. Please follow the resources. Please read the description. Please make sure that you're drawing exactly what the commissioner, me, has assigned you. And so that you guys can learn how to work in an environment that is stressful, that has requirements of you and restrictions, design restrictions. So subscribe on YouTube if you want the recording tonight. I do upload the recording. And the community is right here. Everything that I looked at today I picked up from the community. You can also see everyone's submissions for the environments here. Facebook is what you can use to have me send over your Paintovers if you want those back. I send them. There's no charge or anything like that. I just send them. Twitter is where I upload my private sessions, like my private drawing hours, just streaming my sketches and stuff. And I also announce all classes, and all uploaded videos are announced on Twitter. So if you want to stay connected or ask me questions, Twitter is really the best way to reach me, second to Facebook or equal to Facebook. Thank you everyone for joining today. Have a great day, guys. Bye-bye.